He's Howard Ibach, author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's David Moore, a freelance creative director. And together, David and I are the Brief Brothers because Henry is on the road today. We love talking about advertising, creative briefs, and briefing. This is part 2 of our panel discussion with all creatives. Let's continue the conversation.
I'm gonna say this. I was working with a client who's a cybersecurity firm. You can get no deeper into technology and everything. And he has been trying and he's not a real client, he's more of a friend. But he's been trying to get ChatGPT, whatever it is, to write his brochures and pamphlets and his support stuff. He got frustrated, so he calls me and he goes, "Can we meet for coffee?" I write something for him. He sends it to 23 people at 1:47 p.m. our time, Eastern Standard Time. By 6:30, he had 9 responses. And he's going, "How come chat can't give me this?"
You know,
and part of it is because I didn't write to a target audience. I wrote to a human being. People don't care about copy until it's either very good or very bad. And I attend 1 Million Cups, and I love it because it's a bunch of entrepreneurs, not ad people, not marketing people. And I made the mistake of playing real men of genius. And I walk in, and there's this woman that does charcuterie. I can't say the word. The charcuterie. My tongue will not form, for the boards with snacks on it. The fad.
Charcuterie.
But thank you. Her company sells those. And she's telling these other women. And then the guy sings, "But I can give you another 2 inches." And I know it's the line from Real Men of Genius, foot-long hot dog maker. And she's quoting this to a bunch of women, and they're cackling and loving it. And they're going, "Where do we find these?" They're seeking out commercials that were written 20 years ago. I think it's like I think we downplay, yeah, nobody wants a bad ad. Nobody likes a bad ad, but people share the hell out of some great ones. They just do.
Derek, do you know a guy on LinkedIn, Greg Benedict? He has an ongoing series, yes. Great advertising, how I miss you. And then he's got a Roman numeral that's out like this long. Yeah. And he was a guest on our show some years ago. And he said, I had to go on to Google to figure out what the next sequence was because he had so many Roman numerals. He kind of wrote himself into a corner. Well, he has a lament that I reject. I reject the premise of his lament, which is that only in the good old days did we do good advertising. Yeah, but if you went and took an entire newspaper or an entire magazine from the 1970s and flipped through it, and if you found one ad that was any good, you were fortunate.
I came to Minneapolis in 1993 for the I forgot what you guys do. It was the Creative Summit with the ad agencies, and it was Spike Lee, Mike Hughes, and Jeff Goodby. And I left so in awe. Every agency, any member of the organization in Minneapolis submitted their 3 best ads. And I sat there for 20 or 30 minutes watching 3 hits after hit after hit after hit after hit. Minneapolis was a beast. And San Francisco didn't follow far behind with Goodby, Goldberg, Moser, O'Neill. I mean, it was locked and loaded. Seattle was locked and loaded. Phoenix, Portland was locked and loaded.
No denying that, Derek. But do you believe that there's that quality of that work doesn't exist today?
I don't believe that concentration of that quality of work exists today.
Do you all agree?
Because we were, let me explain why, and I'll shut up. We were studying the craft. There's a shift. We no longer study the craft. I have given away way too many goddamn communication arts advertising annuals to young people who come out of advertising programs and don't know what the annuals are. How in the world are we training people to do this thing and they're not knowing the work? And I'm talking about, I don't give them I'm not giving them 1997 annuals. I'm giving them the 2023 annual, the 2024 annual. And they don't know this book. So how do you get that great work? We were competitive.
We were.
You know,
I'm going to
go
jump
ahead.
in one thing on that, and I'm sorry, but I heard this quote today, because if you follow me at all, you know I'm some a fan of old advertising. I don't think that the work was automatically always better. Yet there was a survivor bias. The only stuff that we see now is the good stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I heard this quote today, history is an exercise in humility. When we think, oh, no one's ever done this, or I'm the first doing this, or this never been done before, you take a look at what's come before, you suddenly say, oh, wait a minute, there is good. And I want to look at the old work, not so I can replicate it, but I want to look at it and I dissect it. How did they solve that problem? That's
Paul Feldwick has demonstrated in his books, if you haven't read his books, I highly recommend them, that we as an industry don't know our own history.
Yeah. God,
you know, I did a training in San Francisco for a major high-tech company on whose business I worked as a freelancer 20 years earlier at Ogilvy in LA. And it was an award-winning campaign. And I went to this company, you know, for 20 years later and said, oh, I was a freelancer on your account. And I told them what the name of the campaign was, and no one in the room had ever heard of it. It was their own business because no one in the room had worked at that company for more than 5 years and had no interest in looking up their own brand history. So yeah, we have a gap in our yeah. of our own industry, of our own brand history. But yeah, I want to hear from you. Do you think the work have we left the best work behind us, or are we still producing good work? What do you guys think?
Well, oh, go ahead. I wanted to go back to the AI question after.
Yeah, well, I was actually probably going to steer us back that way, so we'll see. Because I was thinking about that, Monique. You know, I'm not afraid of AI. I'm afraid of the hype around AI. Because that's the thing. You know, to your point, Howard. Like I think, you know, I mean, I went a year or two ago to the AICP, the Next Awards. You know, like there's the regular AICP Awards, and then there's the Next Awards, and the Next Awards is for work that moves the media of advertising forward. And so much of that stuff was just, it was mind blowing. I mean, it was like, you know, we invented a product rather than we did an advertising for a product. You know, we did a thing, you know, like, oh, we haven't done this before. I mean, somebody made a television program, you know, and really it was an internet program, I guess, but like, you know, it was content taken to a new level. I just think, you know, that's the hype around AI. I think there's so much investment. To me, it's just funny because like we don't want to give you know, a mid-level creative person a raise. We don't want to pay more an hour for a freelance art director, but industry is dumping billions of dollars into this AI in the hopes that it's going to do our jobs. And it's just like, that seems completely backwards to me. All of the talent is right in front of us. And I think to your point, Howard, like we're an industry that is so obsessed with youth and what's next that I think it tries to forget, you know, like we don't value. I remember, I think it was like Arnold Boston got a new CEO that was, I don't recall the name, but like this person had never worked in advertising, and that was their speech when they started the job, is my principal benefit to this company is I've never worked in advertising. And that sounds good in a press release, I guess, but I don't think it is, because I think people, you know, history ends up repeating itself. But you know, as the industry has changed from .com to social media and now AI, I mean, to me, it's just like the same thing happening over and over again. And what we need to do with people on this call, the people who are aspiring to do the stuff we do, is to really evangelize like the value, you know, like people aren't putting enough value on good creative, and how do we make people understand and value what we do? Because there's a lot of people out there that are just like, not engagement, get clicks, you know? So I don't know. I don't have the answer to it, but that's how I kind of frame the problem these days.
I think we're living in a world where everybody, not just advertising, but everybody in every industry is being asked to do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is being squeezed. And I think that AI will offer those people a solution, honestly. Like, and I've actually seen some very good AI. Like, yes, there are instances where Chat GPT hasn't caught up yet. But I think if they keep working on it in a few years, like my designer showed me something the other day. If like he was showing me like an ad designed by AI, and it was remarkable. And he was like, I did this in 3 minutes using AI. He was like, I asked it to just show me a picture of a person with purple hair in a farm, in the middle of a farm. And it did like 10 different versions, and they were remarkable. And I feel like it's going to catch up. It's going to get to the point where it is very good, and you can't tell the difference between something written by a human and something written by AI.
Let's back
But-
up though, Monique,
wait,
because
Kevin.
it required your designer to produce a good prompt for that AI to produce the good ad.
Yes,
If you don't have a good prompt, you're going to get junk.
Yes, but he literally said person in a field, purple hair on a farm. Like, it took no time. I'm just saying that would have taken him how many hours to do that many. So I'm saying,
Okay,
even
well,
like
my
30
count,
minutes with one.
my counter is: do you still want to work on a typewriter?
Okay,
You
why
want to
is
write
that?
out? You want to write all your copy by hand?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Creatives.
Or would you rather get on a
replace them with
horse?
fewer.
Okay.
So I
My
think,
dad, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I think what's interesting, what Monique is saying, and I think it's going to start replacing certain portions of our job, but it doesn't replace the core conceptual thinking part of our job. And I say that because, and again, it goes back to the point someone said, I think we need to do a better job at championing what good creative is, because when people see it, they know it. And it goes back to a point way in the beginning of the call where Howard had quoted somebody like, the best creative is the one that forces the consumer to close the loop. And I learned that too at my first job and my second job, because when they close the loop, they get rewarded. It's like, right, like, I don't know how many of you play Connections. I play it every morning on, the game. That I'm like, as soon as I get where they're going with this, I get that high about me. I'm in on the joke. I understand. I don't know. And again, this is an I don't know. AI, I don't know how it comes up with ideas that are closing the loop ideas. They can do what you're saying, which is more like you were saying earlier. They can write copy that speaks to a certain consumer, that has a certain tone, but I don't know how they leave the unsaid for the consumer to create that makes it great, or also takes into account when you're thinking of an idea, like, how do you input like an intuitive creative, someone who just thinks and is brief, knows the client. They take into account what the societal norms are at the time, all of the client input information about the product. They take in, the tone, they take into the subtle nuances of the consumer. So I think it's going to be an incredible tool to help generate ideas for us to edit through, cull through, finesse to get our idea across. A great example was we launched a menopause product, and I saw tons of iterations of work. And I was like, unless you've gone through it, there are subtleties about a stage of life like that is, I mean, you know, AI is going to have to get really good at the nuances of what it's like to experience that in the culture you're in and the subtleties of that. So, yeah, I think it's a great tool.
And it never will though, Nick, because
No.
it's assuming what it has learned is going to be a truth.
Right.
And here's the important part. We talk about this like AI is going to continue to grow, evolve, but we refuse to accept the fact that human beings don't stay still. AI is chasing humans, human knowledge, experience, culture, changes. If we stay where we are right now, AI will pass us. But are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Are you the same person you were 5 years ago? Are you the same person you are after menopause or after prostate cancer or after whatever, after a major death or whatever? Human beings continue to move. The goal line isn't static. And AI, for its best, is always chasing humanity evolving. I'm not saying it isn't a great tool. What I'm saying is it's not so cut and dry that we are stagnant. I'm not, you know, you asked a hard question. I think the creative as a whole was better in the past. I think because we got rid of a class of older creatives to teach and instruct. So if you don't have the older class to teach and instruct the young ones coming up behind you, what you end up with is a lower standard. There's a complexity to what we do that's lost when there's nobody to show you or guide you to the next level. Yeah. I think AI is a great tool, unless it's hard. I think it will do wonderful things, but will it ever be even with a human being? It can't be, because I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I honest to God don't. As a creative, I look at some of the stuff I think about today and go, no, I couldn't have done that 5 years ago because I didn't have a 30-year-old child. And there's some stuff that adds into the database for me to pull from. Now, if we stay stagnant, if we don't improve ourselves, if we do not grow, AI should pass it. But we're a class of creatives that don't stay still.
Yeah, and that's a good, really interesting point here, Derek, because everything is a bell curve. There is a 1% of us, and we represent that 1% of highly creative people, and there's going to be a 1% at the very end of the bell curve of outstanding ads, and there's going to be ads at the other end that we just don't even want to. We're just embarrassed to even acknowledge exist. There's a lot of crap in the middle. So what we pine for in the past is that 1% that we remember, because that's what everybody brings back: the old Volkswagen ads, the Absolute Vodka ads, the Paco Rabanne long copy. It's like those handful of things that we pull out from the past that everybody says that was great. I wish we were doing that. Well, I with respect, Derek, I think we are still doing that in our own way.
Yeah, I think Greg Hahn in Mischief is a great example of that.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I love about looking at his work, is because he thinks holistically. I mean, a campaign I think of from the past, it's a great example that all of us know, is like the Got Milk. Like, yes. Like AI. And again, this is all, to Michelle's point. I mean, it's growing fast and furious, but how, like, a product that I would think that AI would associate with like health or wellness, or back in the day, health and wellness, regardless of where you land on it right now. But to establish, wow, there's a bigger story about this product that is emotive, that actually, let's sell this product based on the sheer emotion and putting people through. We're going to make you go 2 weeks without milk and see how you feel. Like, that is a completely turn on its head thinking about a product that, unless you were living that life every day with milk and take a chance like that. Like, I don't know how you get there. Doesn't mean it can't get there. I just don't know how you get there. And again,
all
it's a
all the
holistic.
prompting in the world, I don't think would ever get a Chat GPT or a Perplexity or these other generative AI tools to arrive at that. And that's the point. Go ahead, Monique.
I think what I'm thinking though is that work is less creative now because it is not required to be creative. It doesn't have to be creative. Like the Got Milk campaign, I think that was primarily TV and print. Do we do TV and print anymore? Everything is digital now. Everything is all about strategy. And when you get rid of those mediums and everything is about strategy and targeting, work doesn't have to be as creative. Like my day is filled with character counts. I feel like that's the way that's the way that the industry is moving.
I think, hold
So,
on, this is important, and I got to stop you. I don't want to interrupt. There's a misconception that TV and print did not have strategy. They were some of the most strategic pieces of work ever done. It wasn't strategy pulled off of a brief and put into an execution. It was an interpretation of a strategy. But let's not paint this picture that TV and print, radio, outdoor was not strongly strategic. It was ungodly strategic and still can be. But this is one of the things about us not knowing our history. I mean, we dismiss TV like it was some dumb stuff. And I'm sorry, but it wasn't. It was freaking amazing. We do TV today. YouTube is TV.
Yes.
Disney
and
streaming is
longer.
TV. Yeah,
but Derek, remember this, it's maybe 1% of TV in the 1960s was good, and 1% of TV today is
I
good.
think
The
I
rest of it's
disagree
crap.
with that. No, I disagree with that.
And not everything was a Samsung luggage commercial.
No, but look at the soda war. It was Coke and Pepsi. They both went at it amazingly. Sprite entered into the battle and did amazing work. Diet Pepsi entered in, did amazing work. Mountain Dew jumped in and did amazing work. There was a ton of work. Pizza Hut and Domino's, we went to war for decades. McDonald's, Burger King, churches. I mean, we can just rattle off. We want to say it was 1%, but it really wasn't 1%. We were talking about brands. If you watch Foods That Made America, you see brands going to war with other brands at a level we don't see today. Diet, I did not know this. Which one's Bud Light? I don't drink beer, so I don't know them. But watch the episode about Bud Light. They spent more money on advertising than had ever been spent on a beer category. The main beers didn't spend like them. And they did amazing work, which drove the other ones to do this. We repeatedly downplay the impact of great work because it looks easy now.
Well, Miller Lite launched the category of light beers. Yeah.
Actually, it was Yingling.
Well, they didn't. Well, Miller Lite though probably had a bigger splash.
Miller Lite is Yingling Light, Diet Yingling. They bought it and tried. Their formula was so bad they reformulated it into Miller Lite. That's why I said you got to watch brands that made brands that made America. And sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted
to jump in and say, I think everyone here is saying a lot of stuff that I agree with, and I think that is right. I mean, Derek, you're right. I think just about the craft and the next generation and teaching them. But I think one of the ways we can influence this shift is just as consumers. I mean, we can control it one way from being on the inside, but I also think just as consumers, just raising the bar of what we expect from brands and how they advertise and what attracts us and what buys products. I think some of that is going to, I hope, sort itself out, at least some of the things that you're talking about, Monique. So I guess I was also thinking, Mike, when you were talking that like we need more clients that have a higher bar. So we need more Nics in the world, right? Who are who understand and can tell the difference and are setting that bar and pushing that out in the world. So I think there's reason to have anxiety, but I also think that like if we can continue to have like know the difference as consumers, not just as being industry, but as consumers, know the difference between like the garbage that's coming in and make our own decisions based off of brands talking to us and serving us content or ads or marketing or whatever that makes us feel something and react to something and want to associate with them. That's the huge potential we all have and people outside of the industry have as well.
But do you think they know the difference? Do you think the average person who does not work in advertising can tell?
Yeah, they don't click on any of the social media ads. The numbers show it. They don't click on them.
I mean,
they simply don't click on them because they are that bad.
I don't know, Monique. I mean, I feel like I give them maybe more credit than you do. I mean, like, I think there are plenty of dumb people in the world that like don't have a high bar and just like don't feel and react to the same, things in the same way. But I truly believe that like there is a bar for just human beings about like what's interesting or what makes them laugh, what makes them think, what makes them want to associate, what does cool look like to them? Like what is, anything. So I think they do. I mean, I have to believe in some way that there are people out there and the majority of people understand the difference of quality and being spoken to, like a human being and, wanting to have emotions kind of like sparked within them.
Let's remember what Howard Gossage said. People don't read ads. People read what interests them. And sometimes it's an ad.
Yeah.
Now the Brits historically, at least since the 60s, 70s and 80s, have done a brilliant job of, for lack of a better word, training consumers to expect good thinking in their communications and their ads. In contrast, I think in the United States, we've done a really good job of training our consumers to expect value. And a handful of agencies have broken through and tried to burst that model with good creative thinking. I think the Brits are much more, I think it's changing, but I think the Brits really kind of taught us a valuable lesson in that regard.
But I do think Howard, maybe the bar has been raised too for an expectation of being entertained. I mean, I think in our industry, right? And, entertainment, maybe it isn't striking all the emotions, but I think the bar for brands to entertain audiences is higher than it's ever been. And I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways for us, right? So.
And I think that shines a bright light on something else that many in our industry are uncomfortable with, that we don't want to be perceived as entertainers. We want to be considered scientists and experts, but we're entertainers.
Can I ask a question? This is one of the fundamental questions we have not asked about AI. And it's deeper than, I'm not blaming AI. I have a problem with this practice before AI. People are saying, well, AI can do the more mundane, boring work that nobody wanted to do. And why were we, for the love of God, doing boring, mundane work for clients?
To begin with. If that work is boring and mundane, we know it is not noticed. So but
we
it's
just
safe,
pumped out.
And that's what people, and that's what clients, I want to do something that's safe. I'm afraid.
But we're wasting clients' money on things that will not work on sheer volume. I mean, I agree that AI could do that work. I'm asking, should anybody do that work? Anybody. Human, AI, robot, aliens coming down. I don't give a damn.
There's no excuse for Mike will remember there was an account guy that we worked with who would come in and go, okay, guys, let's be creative on this one. And I would just get him out of here. Get him out of here.
Thank you, Gene. Good to see you.
All right.
Peace out.
I was just going to say that there was an account that I worked on at Hoffman York. Gene, I don't know if Gene ever worked on it. It was for a local grocery store. And I forget the name of the woman who went to the regular weekly shoot to take pictures of, chuck roast and vegetables and the lettuce. And we had to put the flyer out for the newspaper, which I don't think exists, or maybe it still does in many places. And she called herself the retail slut. That was her term, not mine.
That's Nan
But
Eichelberger. She's out in LA, Howard.
is she's what?
She's out in LA. Aren't you are you in San Francisco?
I'm in the desert. I'm in the desert. Yes, well, I went to school. Nan kind of taught me an awful lot of stuff. I spent a lot of time with her on those weekly shoots. There wasn't an ounce of creativity in anything we did, but it was a cash cow. It paid a lot of bills. And every agency, for if it's smart, has those kinds of accounts so that they can afford to do the pro bono and the ones that would break the creative barriers. You got to do that. So we all have to learn the ropes doing stuff that does not give us creative outlets. That's just part of the business.
I'm going to counter. I was at Radio Shack for 3 years before the Great Fall. Peace out. Before the Great Fall. And every TV, we were all TV creators. And every team was assigned a flyer. And after I did 2 flyers, my boss came to me and said, the teams don't want you to do a flyer anymore. Because we did the flyer from cover to cover as a concept. We rewrote the copy, we treated it like an ad, and it meant that the other copywriters had to write every product description that they did in their concepts. And we increased sales because people were reading them and they were going to different spots. And I'm passionate about it because I've been on both sides where we could go, I could have phoned in the flyer, but I was so happy to be doing I was like, look, Radio Shack wants to pay me this amount of money. Whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to write well. We're going to do well. We have gotten to the point, even that grocery store stuff can be interesting and engaging. Trader Joe's proved that.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're right.
So let's
stand corrected.
I mean, the evidence is there that we can do better work. My problem is to openly say that this work that we're going to hand off to AI is the mundane shit. That, as a client, when I was at Pizza Hut or Radio Shack, I would have been deeply offended because we're not paying you for mundane. I believe clients are in the fight of their lives too often. And they turn to us and we're going to go, this category of work is mundane. No, this category of work should not be done. How many fucking emails do I need in a week from a brand? Emails. I need maybe 1 a month, maybe 2 a month. And I would be less annoyed as a consumer. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our AI and we're going to pump out 7 emails a week and justify it by that. If you're going to take that money, then take that money and claim what you are. We are whoring ourselves. Just own it. But don't you dare tell me you're creative, because what you're doing is you're diminishing the level of our work. And if we don't have a standard, we get to where we are right now. I'm sorry. I would rather
don't apologize. That was eloquent.
I'm actually really inspired by that.
Yeah, me too.
And that's the thing. Like because Monique, I really do share a lot of the concern that you brought up, and I don't know. I'm in the trenches every day still, and I do see that. But man, I was just thinking about that. Like I have an email account that is useless to me because, like I mean, I get 100 emails a day from companies that I bought a pair of socks from in 2017. And, I have worked and do work with people who preach the church of analytics and the church of engagement. And I think you're right. There is definitely, it might require less creativity when you can know someone wants to buy a pair of socks at the moment they need them and serve them an ad. I don't know. How do we look at that as an opportunity rather than a threat?
But Jesus Christ, Mike, you're a guy.
Like I know, but yeah.
We will wear those. We will wear our socks and underwear until they're
Oh, I
like
know.
50
Yeah.
holes in them.
I still have those socks from 2017 for sure.
Why you're getting
Yeah.
emails when the woman in your life should be getting the email, because you'll wear it till it looks like a sieve. I mean, sorry, come
that's
on.
very true. But I mean, like,
have that research. They know how long you wear your socks for.
they do. They
And
do.
they're listening to this conversation, by the
They
way.
are. And they jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they jump on. I mean, I started a little brand recently of my own, a little side hustle, and I needed hats. And like the minute I clicked on a custom hat ad, oh my God, I'm still getting ads. That's not gonna move me.
Okay.
Like, think of the money that those hat companies are wasting, because I bought 6 hats and they're still serving me, you know, and that's the thing, like the cost to serve that click is very, very low now. But I mean, how do we look at that as an opportunity for people with minds like ours to like, that's the clutter we still get to cut, you know? Like, that's the stuff. That's the opportunity of great creativity.
Yeah.
Shock people out of that.
I would say that there's some great, obviously a huge part of our job is the social component. And that to me is, there's a lot, when someone signs up for your email newsletter, that's almost like you've gone through some sort of ClickFunnels to get that. But if they don't serve you something value added in that, then you've lost them. It's like, serve me something more than I got, whether it's a laugh or whatever. And I think companies are doing that and brands are doing that. If you like Oreo, I mean, Wendy's, I follow Wendy's, and that's what I mean. Consumers want good creative and they follow it when they see it. And it's usually creative that's highly authentic to the brand or to the consumer's experience of the brand. So like Wendy's is Oreos, Hilton's doing Heinz, like there's so
have you seen Nutter Butter?
there's no,
No,
but
but
it gets to the truth, the authentic truth of the human experience. People will engage with it, and it goes back to us, you know, understanding that humanity, right? Even Got Milk, a social post for that out of an old medium. I mean, you could ask people to have consumer generated content where it's just like, hey, post pictures of your dogs with peanut butter. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you got consumer engagement on your page where they're just like, and who doesn't want to pass on, like, this is a dog that can't get peanut butter. You know, I mean, that's a subtle example, but it's just taking that idea as a strong conceptual idea that's an umbrella idea that can trickle down to all of those different modes and to social engagement, because it's a strong initial thought that you can look at it and go, it can go everywhere.
And to get back to what Derek was saying before about, you know, how you talk to someone, Howard Gossage always also said, I don't know how to talk to everybody. I know how to talk to somebody. You want to talk to everybody? Talk to one person. And that's how you get to be human and authentic. Now, that's grounded. That's a fundamental truth about a good brief when you're describing who the audience is. Because I've seen briefs that said, I want to talk to millennials. It's like, yeah, and who are they? They're like a bazillion of them. Give me an example of one. Yeah. But you want to be authentic, talk to one person. So where are we netting out here?
I'm going to say I'm pro AI. I just want to get that out there as a tool. As a tool. As a replacement, I'm not, because I think we are so wonderfully marvelous built that we'll be here for a while until the AI rises up. And I just watched the Halle Berry movie where the AI killed off its makers, and then we're gonna have a problem.
Isn't that the Terminator premise too?
It's a lot of
premise. Hey, wait, look, if Hollywood's making the same movie 15 times, and here we are.
But that's their MO. That's their MO. So Monique, where do you have you adjusted your thinking? What are your thoughts about AI now? after this conversation?
After talking for an hour about it. No, I think it's potentially going to be a threat to the industry. I still think that is the case. Maybe not today, but I think in years to come, it will be a threat to the industry. I don't think all creatives are going away, but I think it's going to transform the industry and the way we work. I think it's going to shrink the industry. I think you can have fewer people doing more work, doing the work of a lot more people. And so there are going to be less people working in the creative fields in advertising.
And Monique, you will be surprised by this. I totally agree, but I also think advertising has gotten too big in the first place. Everybody can open an ad agency.
Yeah.
And it's when you don't have the training or the experience behind you, it's a nightmare. I've worked for one group of people who were not ad people, and it was the most miserable experience of my life. And what's bad about it is they ran an 800-person agency into the ground. They had 13 Procter & Gamble accounts and ended up on Procter & Gamble's do not bid list. They did such a horrible job because they thought they could quote Procter & Gamble one number and then come back and raise the price on Procter & Gamble. And any ad folks that have ever worked on Procter & Gamble went, no, that's not the bully you jump on. And Procter & Gamble slapped them around and then finally said, you cannot bid our business on any of Procter & Gamble accounts. So it put it out of business. My problem is I don't understand where we accept doing bad work. And we don't have a standard to say this. I'm not attacking you or anyone else. It's the thinking that bothers me. That if you're going to pump out 7 emails, an email a day, or you have to have a social media post every day, when human beings aren't responding to the social media posts you're putting out, we are doing the client a disservice. And we used to not be vendors. We used to be consultants to clients. And we would have told clients, this is first of all, you can't maintain this. Second, it doesn't work. But we let people sell them on this crap. And now we're locked in a vicious cycle where we believe we have to post at least twice a day.
Derek, this is a whole topic. I could go on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to wrap things up. We've had an amazing conversation. I appreciate you sticking around for this part of time. Let's wrap this up by, I want to hear your thoughts on, you run into a young person who says, I'm thinking about going into advertising, copywriter, art director, strategist, whoever or whatever it might be. What would you tell them in a sentence or two? What would your advice be? Sarah, what do you think?
If you really, really want to do it, do it.
Wow. Yeah. You can't beat that.
Have fun. Sarah said, if you want to do it, but have fun doing it. Yes, monkeys. I want a monkey now that you two have shown
me
these
too.
monkeys. I'm like, what are these monkeys?
Yeah.
And how do we get these?
Have you marketed them yet? Come on.
Yeah.
Nic, what would you say? What advice would you give?
I would say absolutely find some campaigns and some brands that you really love, then find who did those, and then find mentors that can help you, guide you to your next step. Like a lot of times it's like, hey, where can I actually learn great advertising? First, I remember it's the same as back in the day. Like, hey, find out what kind of advertising you want to do. And not everyone wants to do like highly conceptual advertising. Some people do want to do just more direct, more retail driven. And that can even be an incredibly conceptual creative category as well, depending on who does it. But find out what type of advertising that you want to do. Is it highly social? Like, I'd really guide them like a career counselor. What kind of, do you want to do big brand? And find out, like I said, the stuff you're drawn to, you think is good advertising. Find out who did it and try and get in. Like, try and find a mentor, try an intern there, ask around, find someone who can shepherd you, and go to a great school or go to a great bookshop or somewhere that can help get you a portfolio. There's a lot of places out there that'll teach you book knowledge, but especially now it's like, hey, you need to get into executions and you need to have examples of your work that show that kind of thinking. And I would also say, have fun. And I would highly encourage them. It's an incredible career. I still love it to this day. I love the people that I meet. It's an incredible job.
Do you know if Mike Whitlow's still doing bookshop? I know he passed away some years ago,
He
but
passed away, but Lisa is one of the teachers. I haven't talked to her in a while, but I know she was still involved. I'm hoping that they're still continuing, because obviously he was an incredible mentor for so many people. I mean, I went to Portfolio Center. So again, I went to and learn from people in the business.
I was mid-career when I came out to LA, but I still took Mike Whitlow's bookshop just because it just helped. You can't not continue to learn.
Yeah.
I want to apologize. I want to apologize to everybody real quick. I've been looking down because we are under a tornado watch because of Hurricane Helena, and it's still in the Gulf.
Where are you, Derek?
Columbia, South Carolina. It's reached 400, 500 miles inland with storms already.
Yeah.
So I've been looking, while I'm on the call, I've been looking at the window and everything because we've already gotten like 8 inches of rain.
Wow. We have a good strong signal.
Yes. Our neighborhood is, all our wires are underground. So we don't even have telephone poles. But yeah, we'll be fine. But I just wanted to, don't reach out to me and say, are you okay? Yeah. We're inland. Good. Our winds will get to 60 or 70 miles an hour tonight.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Mike, what advice would you give to a young creative or young advertising aspirant?
I sometimes feel like I'm like the last person who didn't do a portfolio school. And I
didn't either. Not till I was mid-career.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like the last of the generation that didn't. I always take extra time when someone writes to me who hasn't done that or who can't afford it or something, because I do think that there's a huge benefit to doing that. I think they teach you how to get in, and I think they teach you how to make the connections. That's probably the most important thing. But the advice that I would give is be true to yourself. Listen to your own crazy voices in your head. I never answered the question like, did my career meet or exceed or fail to exceed my expectations? I'd say if anything, it's confounded my expectations. I like in this room, in this virtual room, I mean, you're dropping a lot of the names of people who I 20 years ago dreamed of working with, and I actually learned that I'm happier in an independent agency. I feel like you can do more good there. I feel like you can like the opportunities. It's often harder to do category beating work, but it feels more satisfying when you do. So I think that's the thing I would say. Just be true to yourself. Listen to your strangest instincts. Be prepared to adapt. Welcome change. Don't expect to work in advertising forever. It's going to change, and you have to change with it, or you have to figure out how you can apply your talents to something else, because this is not the only career for people who are creative. If you are a creative person, just create your own future. You're in charge. And don't let anybody tell you what's right or wrong. That's my take.
Well said. Monique?
I actually agree with Mike. I think the first thing I would say is why. Why do you want to have a career in advertising? Like I've been in advertising for over 20 years now, and I have watched it change. I went into advertising for the sex, drugs, rock and roll. And it's not, I feel like it's not there anymore. The big shoots on the coast where you had like an enormous like per diem and the hot cars and the hotels, like, and you could just shoot whatever. That's why people were drawn to advertising. Nowadays, I'd be like, why do you want to go into advertising? What about it appeals to you? Like, if they say, I just want to do something creative, I would say it's not the only creative outlet. There are plenty of other fields that maybe you should consider. I keep meeting high school kids nowadays who are like, they're like, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm like, what are you going to be? And they're like, I'm going to be an influencer. And I'm just like, why? Like, it looks cool, but actually being an influencer is a lot of work and it's really hard to make it. And the people that have made it have spent 10 years developing it. Advertising is not sexy, actually is a lot of work. It is fun, but it is a lot of work. Why do you want to go into advertising? I would make them really think long and hard about what they want to do, why they want to do it, and then we could go from there.
Monique, I would ask this exact same. I want to know why, because if their answer is, oh, because I love to write or I love to draw, I'm like, then don't be an advertiser because it's
Right.
a business. It's not the art. And nothing
Right.
is worse than a copywriter who has an unpublished screenplay.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
just going to frustrate yourself and frustrate the client.
Yes.
Get out of the business.
Yes. Or designers that are like, I love to illustrate and paint. And it's just like, well, maybe you should become an illustrator or a painter. Yeah.
That pays,
you know,
that, I'm sorry, that
research
those pay less than advertising.
Yeah.
It's harder to make a living as a painter than it is as an advertising person. At least we get benefits sometimes.
Yeah,
Huh?
my aspiration was to
Painting
write
walls.
poetry and translate my favorite foreign language poets into English, and I thought I could make a living doing that. You know,
I think they need to the only advice I would give other than what everybody else is learn to fail.
that's a given.
Oh, great advice.
That's a given.
Yeah.
No, it's a given, but we make failure bad.
Well, we do, but I
And-
remember the words of Michael Jordan, his most famous quote. He said, "I have failed over and over and over, and that is why I succeed."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean I'm seeing young advertising professionals. I'm not even saying creatives across the board who really believe they cannot fail
Mhm.
or they will not fail. And I'm sorry, our batting average is, if we really looked at it and we're honest, the numbers are bad. We don't succeed as
Well,
much
none
as
of them
we would
is
like to.
Yeah, none of them is going to be a creative if they have that attitude.
But there are a bunch of them that do. I mean,
Well, yeah,
I teach
and
at
they
the
won't make it.
They're
I
not gonna
teach at the
last. They won't last.
No,
Yeah.
You can't get attached to any idea. You're going to have
Yeah.
a lot your ideas get killed and you can't take it too personally. You're just like, I got more.
yeah. Yeah, one of the things I did at Carlson Marketing Group, which was another agency in Minneapolis where I worked that closed its doors, we would have a special day where all the creative directors would put up in the walls of one particular conference room all the work that was never presented to the client because it didn't make the final cut.
Yeah.
And we were so, then everybody walked around and looked at this is work that wasn't even presented, but it was still remarkably good.
Do you guys know Tom Rosen?
Yes.
Tom won a Kelly for Johnson Control when he was at Kramer Krasser. And the Kelly was the best print magazine ad. And he won it for B2B client. And Paul Council, the CEO of Kramer Krasser, used to bring all the CEOs in Milwaukee to lunch on Friday. he had created a club. So it'd be Master Lock, Wausau Insurance, Johnson Controls, Case Construction, Briggs and Stratton, Harley Davidson. And Johnson Controls CEO was bragging about winning a Kelly. And one of our clients was Case Construction Equipment. And the CEO of Case Construction Equipment looks at Paul and goes, "Why haven't we won a Kelly?"
Exactly.
And Paul scheduled a meeting. And when they came into the conference room, across the table was just a body of work, roughs. And all of them were marked with the little approve or do not approve stamp that we used to use.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul had the art directors go get all the work that had ever been presented to Case. And he said, the problem is, this is what we presented, and this is what you approved.
Yep.
Look at the changes your people have made to the work. And what was funny is, and the real funny part was, we found out the marketing director hadn't shown the CEO the work. He had signed his name. So he was editing it before it got to his boss, who had the final say. And he's wondering why he didn't win a Kelly, because they spent more money than God on print at the time. And it was a moment like that you go, oh, that's why he goes to lunch with them. He created a whole network of, and I don't know a CEO that's training the people coming up behind them that that's how you handle clients. You know, so you got to find somebody who's in it. You can't be a Fortune 5. You can't be a holding company agency.
This has been maybe not my career, but this has exceeded my expectations. So I'm grateful to all of you for your loquaciousness, your insightful ideas, and your willingness to share. So good stuff, David.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's David Moore.
He's Howard Ibach.
And together we are the Brief Brothers. Till next time, bye-bye.